Great job on being here, whether you're in person or online. Mackenzie, good morning. Good to have you here. All right. Well, so if you're taking notes, just listen to this, and then I want you to write it down. I wrote this down. The biggest determinant of my success, ultimately, will be the principles, philosophies, and standards that I decide to live by. Just take the time to, I want you to write that down. I just want you to digest that for a second. The biggest determinant of my success, ultimately, will be the principles, philosophies, and standards I decide to live by. You know, it is so interesting that, you know, if you pay attention to what's going on in the world, if you pay attention to what's going on in this country, if you pay attention to what's going on in our community, if you pay attention to what's going on within your office, you'll find plenty of opportunity you'll find people, good morning, Veronica, good to see you. You'll find people who will use what's going on in the world as an excuse for their personal circumstances. They'll point to the external forces and say, it's because of all of those things that I don't have what I want, or I'm not who I want to be. I don't have the money I want in the bank because the competition's giving away their commissions and I have to compete with them by giving away my commissions. It's difficult to get listings because there's low inventory. So that's why I don't have enough listings. I don't have the physical body that I want because I'm so stressed, don't have enough time to eat the right foods, to exercise consistently. I'm not in the best relationship because the person I'm in a relationship with just isn't the person that I need or want them to be. In other words, all sorts of excuses as to why they aren't living the life that they want to live. And I have to tell you, and I say this to you not because I got it all figured out, but it's something that I at least recognize, that the life that I live is directly related not to what's happening externally, but how I respond to those things. In other words, going back to what I said, the biggest determinant of your success ultimately will be the principles, philosophies, and standards that you decide to live by. For example, you take a look at this country that we live in. It is not a coincidence, gang, that it is the most powerful nation in the world to ever have existed since the inception of civilization, because of the principles and philosophies and standards that the founders of this country recognized principally as they wrote the Constitution. And they recognized the Bill of Rights and the things that we recognize that we take for granted, that most other nations and other citizens of other countries don't get the benefit of, including a free market system that allows people to pursue whatever interest they have, to do the sort of job that they want to do, to engage in free will between one person and another in some sort of a contract, that if I provide you a service and I do a great job, will you pay me a fee to do that? It's called a commission. And they say yes. And then you get an opportunity to bless them by providing to them a high level of service, knowledge, leadership, helping them move on to the next level in their life. And they pay you a ton of money. That's called capitalism. And the fact is, the vast majority of people on this planet don't live under that system. And because of that philosophy that we have, and it's been one that we've abided by since inception of this country is the richest nation that's ever existed on this planet, because of the principles and philosophies and standards of this country. The lot of the average person in this country is better than it has ever been for any person to ever exist on this planet in any civilization ever. And that is not a coincidence. It's because of the principles, philosophies, and standards. And you take a look at people that you know and you see how they live, and they live extraordinary lives. It doesn't mean that they don't have challenges, because we all do. It's part of the human what? It's part of the human what? Life experience. And yet they still live extraordinary lives. Why is that? Because of their what? There you go. The principles, philosophies, at least these two got it. Because of their what? Yeah, their standards, their principles, their philosophies. So what I want to do in the few minutes that we have remaining, I just want to introduce to you 4 different principles, philosophies, or standards. None of these are going to be new to you, but my job is to make certain that things that you already know, because this is what knowledge is, Veronica. Knowledge is not information. Knowledge is information that you take and actually leverage, that you use, that you apply. Information is worthless unless you actually do what with it, Danny? You got to do what? You got to use it, right? So my job is to make sure that you elevate on a very conscious level these principles, philosophies, and standards and ask yourself this question: am I doing these things? Because if I said to you 2 times 2, what would you say? 4, right? Because you know the what? You know the equation, you know the formula, right? But if you decide to deviate from that proven formula, right, saying, well, I want to see if it could work a different way, or I don't like the way that's written, I want to try a different formula. Is there a different formula to get 2 times 2 to get to a 4?
Yes.
Is there? Okay. There you go. And what is there another one? There you go. There, right? Right. But you're exactly right. All within the framework of the rules and the principles and the standards in what? In basic what? Math. But if you deviate from any of those standard rules, are you going to get the answer? And of course, that answer is no. You can't deviate from it. You have to leverage it. And what I find is that for a lot of people, they'll acknowledge it, but they deviate from it. And then it's a mystery to them. Why am I not getting the results? Why am I not living the life that I want? Well, because you're deviating from the standard rules, from the principles, from the philosophies that have been proven for not just a year, 2 years, a decade, 100 years, but for what? Millennia, really, ultimately. So let's go through these. The first one that I wrote down is this. And I want you to listen to this, because this one was an aha for me that it took me several years to get to. Derive your sense of confidence from the system and not from the results. I want you to digest that for a second. Derive your sense of confidence from the system, not from the results that you get from the system. Yes. Derive your sense of confidence from the system, not from the results. I've been sharing this message a lot. Every time I speak, I keep saying this. Because what I'm finding is that the way human beings are wired is we're so afraid to try anything because we're afraid of what? Failure. Let me tell you something. If it's something that you're new to, that you're not familiar with it, and you try it, are you going to fail? Yeah, you are. And the challenge is, if you derive your sense of confidence based upon the outcome, it can be a really difficult time believing in yourself, right? But if you can say, well, wait a minute, I'm new to this. This is a new process to me. But I understand that this is a formula that actually works because I watch other people do it and it works for them. And it isn't written anywhere that 2 + 2 doesn't work for anybody as long as they what? As they stick to the formula. The variable in any formula, any proven formula, is not the formula, it's who? It's the person who's applying it. But man, if you can recognize that and say, okay, so if I am leveraging a proven formula, I'm not going to derive my sense of confidence from the outcome that I get, because can you sometimes use a formula and get the wrong answer? Yes. How many of you have taken a math exam before or a quiz before? Did you always get 100%? You didn't, because you deviated from a what? From the formula. Of course you did. Yeah. For those of you on Zoom, Brandon said he always got 100%. So there were. That is awesome. Yeah. Very good. We're going to get you a special hat after this. Yeah. But I want you to think about this relative to this concept of derive your sense of confidence from the formula, from applying it, from leaning into it, and not from the outcome. Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, right? And it wasn't an easy process for him. It took many, many years. Do you know how many versions or iterations of the light bulb he had to create before he found one that was commercially viable that would work? So it was a multiple of 10. So it was 1,000 versions of the light bulb itself, okay? But then, you know the inner workings of the light bulb? You see those wires and that little jagged thing? It's called the filament. That's the thing that actually has the electricity run through it that lights up, right? He had to create thousands of versions of that as well separately in order to get to that version that actually worked. It took him years to do that. And you know the good news? Say what? He didn't give up. Because what he did is he followed the rules, the formulas, the philosophies, the standards that he had learned through his scientific education, through practice. And he said, I'm just going to stick with this. And he did over and over and over again. He didn't lose his sense of confidence in the process. He leaned into it, believed in it. And as a result, because he stuck with it, he invented the what? The light bulb. He derived his sense of confidence in himself and the process from the process, not because of the outcome. I mean, how many of you have tried prospecting once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times, 15, 20, 30, 50 times, and finally decided, okay, that's enough. It's too much for me. It's not working. I got to try something, right? Or at least Veronica's honest. Come on, all of you raise your hands. You've all done that. What we have a tendency to do is focus on the outcome rather than leaning into the system and recognizing that is where the power is. Michael Jordan did not make 100% of his shots. I was watching a documentary on Larry Bird last night. Anybody remember Larry Bird? Oh, any of you old enough to remember? Phenomenal basketball player. And to watch this guy he was one of the dirtiest, most trash-talking players ever to exist in basketball. But one of the reasons that he was because it was an exceptional shot. And I watched, he consistently, when they introduced the 3-point shots to the NBA, which was in 1979, when he finally got into the league and he signed up for it, he won the first 3 years. But here's the thing. Do you think that he made every one of his shots? Even as good as he was, he didn't make all of his shots. But what he did is he recognized the fundamentals and he adhered to those as much as possible. But at times, he wouldn't quite do it the right way every time. He would deviate from the what? From the formula. And as a result, he would miss the what? But he didn't say, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. And I don't believe in myself. And I'm a wreck. And my competitors are better than me, right? He derived a sense of self-confidence from leaning into the fundamentals. And as a result, he became one of the greatest basketball players to ever to live and to play the game. So gang, the question I ask you is, are you deriving your sense of self-confidence from the outcomes that you're getting, or leaning into the system and saying, I know that if I lean into this, that I'm going to get the results that I want. So therefore I can be confident. I can be confident in the outcome. But here, this is what it takes. It takes patience. See, some of you give up on the formula. And I can tell you, the formula will never give up on you because the formula is proven. It's the truth. So if you'll leverage it, it will give you everything that it's capable of as long as you will stick with it. But you have to what? Stick with it. It's when you deviate from it, when you're inconsistent, when you try it here and there, but not all the time, you're going to get inconsistent results. How many of you are tired of getting inconsistent results? And I don't mean like you shoot the basketball and you make 50% of them. That's consistent. In life, if you can pick up the phone and get 50% of the people to pick up, that's amazing. Is it not amazing if you get half the people to pick up their phone? It is awesome. And if you can pick up the phone and talk to those people who answer, and you can get 3 or 4 out of 10 to agree to an appointment, is that not awesome? Right? Are you guys expecting perfection? And you say, well, no, I'm not, but I'll make some calls and I don't even reach anybody, or I don't even set an appointment. Well, I know, but are there days where you make your calls and nobody answers, or you don't set an appointment? And of course the answer is yes, but do you give up? No. And that's why, for example, this young lady will recruit 70, 75 people annually into an organization because she leverages the protocol, the systems, the formulas, and doesn't what? Doesn't give up. She stays patient. Principle number 2, write this one down. Have clarity of purpose. Be clear about your purpose. Have clarity of purpose. %80 of success, gang, is just simply showing up. It's a lot easier to show up when you understand why you're showing up. I believe that the average person fails to live an extraordinary life because they don't know why they're supposed to show up beyond simply surviving. See, the average person is just in survival mode, so that's why they show up. And they get right to that point where they're just surviving, and guess what they do? They give up. They quit. It's like, right. 80% of success is showing up. Do you know why you're showing up on a daily basis? Those who have a clear idea as to why they're showing up will show up more often and will stay longer and will do it longer over time than those who don't have clarity of why. Those who live extraordinary lives, those who are passionate, are those who are clear about their purpose. Are you clear about that? And it doesn't have to be the same thing. Each one of you can have a different reason as to why you show up, and that's okay. And you can also, Monica, one day you can show up for a different reason than the next day you show up. But every day have a clear understanding as to why, Gabby, you're showing up. And if you'll do that, you'll separate yourself from the average person, from the crowd. And gang, I know this doesn't seem to be like amazing, but I'm telling you, it's amazing. It's revolutionary. It is so simple, it's powerful. If you know why you're going to show up, you have a tendency to show up more often, but you have to have that clarity. Principle number 3, write this one down. I have to get out of my box. I have to get out of my box. What does that mean? Well, the box maybe that your parents painted you into, maybe the box that your community painted you into, maybe the box that society paints you into, maybe the box that you painted yourself into, maybe the box that your circumstances that you've lived and experienced, you've decided, well, that's just the way life is. So you painted yourself into that box. Maybe the box of your habits that you formed over the course of years, decades. Einstein said that the purest definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and what? Expecting a different result. You can't get a better result than what you're currently getting if you don't change your behavior, if you don't get out of the box that you're currently in. You have to change your behavior. You have to improve your behavior. Does that make sense? Say aye. So what is it about your current behavior that needs to change? See, for most people, they'll wait for external forces to change so that they get a greater return. I'm telling you, if you expect as a real estate agent that the market's going to improve and you're going to start to get better returns, you are sorely mistaken. Anybody paying attention to interest rates going up? Is that going to have a positive or negative impact on the psychology of a buyer? A negative impact, right? So it's your job to stop worrying about those interest rates and start focusing on your ability to communicate with people in a very powerful way and talk to more of them and find people who are motivated, who aren't so much concerned about interest rates, or they can talk to a leader who can explain to them why it's still an amazing time to buy, even though interest rates are at 5% versus 3 or 2.5 a year or 2 years ago. And if you'll do that, in other words, take control of the things you actually take control of instead of focusing on the things that you don't, you'll be wildly successful regardless of what's going on in the marketplace. But you have to get outside of your box. I wrote this question down. How have you trained your mind relative to fear? How does your mind respond to fear? I defy you to name one human being who isn't subject to fear and being gripped by fear. They don't exist. Every human being faces fear. The difference between those who are highly successful in life at whatever it is that they do is that they don't let fear what? Control them or overwhelm them. They recognize it, they face it off, and they say, you know what? I know you're there. You're going to be with me always, but you're not going to control me. How have you trained your mind to respond to fear? See, those who are successful respond by saying, I'm not going to let you control me. I'm not afraid of you. I know you're there and you're always going to be there, but fear, I'm not afraid of you. I'm going to move forward. So how have you trained your mind relative to fear? You know, owning more space mentally, owning more space physically. Mentally, meaning In your own mind, expanding the way you perceive yourself and what you believe you're capable of and what is possible for you in your life. Expanding the space that you own in terms of the people that you talk to. What is your sphere? And I'm not talking just your sphere of influence. I'm talking about the sphere in your life and the people you're going to impact beyond your sphere of influence. Being willing to talk to the strangers and the strange people who are strange, right? Go out there and talk to people. Get outside of your box. And then the fourth thing is this. Wake up every single day and choose love over fear. Wake up every single day and choose love over fear. Well, what does that mean? It means instead of being fearful, be grateful. It means instead of holding a grudge or against someone else or beating yourself up for a mistake that you made. I made several yesterday, by the way. Instead of beating myself up over those mistakes, I show myself grace and say, you know what? It's okay. Because you're what? Human. And you're going to make what? So acknowledge that and move on. Show yourself grace and show others in your life who've made mistakes. Show them grace. Fill your life not with fear, because out of fear comes anger and frustration, but rather fill it with what? With love. Because when you fill your life with love, you find gratitude, you find joy, you find happiness, you find forgiveness, grace, contentment. And you imagine doing the things that you have to do on a daily basis in real estate as well as in your life coming from those two different perspectives. Fear-based versus love. Which one is going to get you much further in life? Love. So I shared these with you not because I have these mastered, but every single day, these are 4 principles that I try to live by. I'm not perfect at it, but I'm a lot better at it than most people because I've simply recognized them on a conscious level more consistently every single day. So gang, if you can do that, if you can take these principles and recognize them and leverage them, these are the formulas that if you'll leverage and stick with them, they're going to give you the answers to the test. They're going to get you the results that you want. You're going to get to live the life that you want, that others talk about, because you know the principles, you know the philosophies, you know the standards, and you live them, you become them. And as a result, you have the opportunity to go out and bless the lives of other people to a much higher level. It's so interesting to watch people who go through life focused simply on themselves. And I'm not beating them up. I'm really not, because it's part of the human condition. We are programmed to really do that. But if we can get outside of our own heads and start to get into the heads of other people, man, what we can do, the way we can change not only our own lives, but the lives of other people, it's powerful. It's amazing. And we have great examples of people who do that, who in history have done that, and people today who are doing that. And there's no reason that every single one of us can't be that person as well. Fair enough? All right, let's finish this up with some closing affirmations.